All right. Jake Ellenbogen, Cameron Lynch here off the edge. We are back, and we're here to talk about this time the worst NFL teams in the league.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah, we're gonna start with an honorable mention here, but before we do, just letting you know, if you like us in any point in this video, you can follow us on BR, the app right now. So you can follow us right there. It should be right in the video right now. But in addition to that, you can follow us on socials at JK Bogan and at Cameron Lynch 50. So, Cam, let's dive right into this thing.
Let's do it.
The honorable mention here is an honorable mention for a reason. Okay, I don't think this team is great. They've already lost the locker room, but we love the fans. Okay, first off, let me just say that we love
no smoke. We don't want no smoke.
we love the Raiders fans. They've been interacting with us a ton, but the Raiders, it ain't great right now. To be fair, I thought Aiden O'Connell played well. I thought he gave him a chance to win. Then his own coach threw him under the bus after his first start, saying he needs to be better, protecting the football. Their only win is against...
It is the truth, but it's the harsh truth for your first start.
Yeah, exactly, right? And their only win, which was week 1, was against a not good team that we'll probably get to at some point. So, honorable mention goes to the Raiders. We haven't seen them play tonight. They can definitely be the worst team in the NFL. They've already lost the locker room. Josh McDaniels has proven time and time again he's not a head coach in the NFL. He's just not worthy of it.
Jake, the comment section already. It's already getting going about the Raiders. Just Josh McDaniels. I think we talked about this before, but what we saw with Chandler Jones, I think what we're seeing with Josh Jacobs, right? I talked to my dad about this, Jake. My dad's a Raiders fan, if folks didn't know. And I'm like, Dad, what do you think's going on? He's like, yeah, they lost the locker room. And I just know, and I asked him about Josh Jacobs. I'm like, hey, this guy was the #1 running back last year. What is going on? And he was talking about it, and it was like, we just don't know if the team believes in him right now. And Josh McDaniels talking about the head coach. And we don't know what's going on over there, but it's showing, right? And whenever a team is not doing good, it's either you coach it or you allow it. And I'm seeing an allowance of bad ball for the Raiders, and we'll see tonight, Jake, like you said. But as of now, it's not looking so good over there.
Yeah, no, it's really not. I think at this point in time, the Raiders right now boast a negative 39 point differential, and they haven't even played their game yet. So, not great. They've lost 3 straight. They're at home. If they lose again to the Packers, then yeah, they'll be on this list. But they're honorable mentions. So, number 8, we got the Minnesota Vikings, 1-4. Pains me to say it. They have a negative point differential. They feel like the best 1-4 team maybe of all time.
Yeah,
but they're
1-4. They're the best trash team right now. That's not saying they're trash. You want to call anybody trash, but they're the best, worst team right now. The Vikings have been turning the ball over like no one's business. And it's like, hey, fumbles, interceptions, like, oh, what's going on here? Let's tighten the ship. But they've been playing. You've been seeing some light, Kirk Cousins throwing the ball really well. You're like, man, is he the best quarterback in the league? But then he'll fumble it or throw it away, and it's like, dang it, So it's just really frustrating to see. But the Vikings, like you said, the best, worst team right now.
They really are. I think right now when you look at it, the Vikings, it's kind of weird. It's a far cry from last year. The Vikings went undefeated in 1-possession games last year in the regular season, and then this year they're 1-4 in 1-possession games. Every game has been a 1-possession game. When you have that much talent, you would expect to be in every game. The Eagles game, that one they played pretty well on the road. We just saw that Eagles team is for real. The Chargers game, they let a team that went for it on 4th down in their own territory at the 30-yard line turn the ball over, give them great field position to win the game, and then they lost still. They lost to the Buccaneers 20-17 in their home. Everyone was saying Baker's not good enough to, quarterback this Buccaneers team, and he beats Kirk Cousins in his own arena. The Chiefs yesterday, I thought they had a chance to win that game. I actually picked them to win that game. They fell just short. So, Vikings got a lot of talent, but for whatever reason, 1-4 is bad. Now they're going to Chicago with a revitalized Chicago Bears team at this point in time, but we'll see. And after that, they got the 49ers. So it doesn't exactly get easier. They are at 8 for us.
And to be fair, Jake, the NFC right now is not looking great, right? Like this list is mostly NFC teams right now. The AFC is playing super well, but the NFC is not. And so that's just it is what it is right now. But like you said, Jake, the Vikings. I mean, Justin Jefferson, I know last week against the Chiefs, or the other night against the Chiefs was a little bit quiet, but our guy Addison stepped up really well. But man, the Vikings got to get together, because when they play the 49ers, man, those guys are looking real right now. Brock Purdy, I talked about this other night as well. I know we're not talking about the best team in the league. We're talking about the worst teams. But going up against a team like the 49ers, Brock Purdy is looking like that guy. So he's in a great system, and it's working out for him properly. Kirk Cousins right now, Jake, I don't know what to think of it. I mean, I saw the QB Netflix show. It was looking fabulous, and now it's all falling apart, it feels like.
Yeah, it seems like, I think he's playing well. I think they just have no semblance of a running game, which we saw against the Chiefs. And it's not great right now. It's just not great. The coaching, you could even say KOC has kind of lost his touch a little bit. Number 7, the Arizona Cardinals. Okay. I kind of hate putting them in the list because, I don't think they are that bad, but at some point or another, we have to get over the fact that they are that bad. They are 1-4. They lost by 14 to the Bengals, who got blown out by the Titans. They almost lost by 20 to the 49ers. They beat the Cowboys, which now we realize the Cowboys are not a good football team. Finally, we kind of knew that, but we realized it after last night.
You are not him, pal.
What was their crowning achievement? The fact that they were tougher than we expected. The fact everyone came into the season was like, oh, this team is going to tank for Caleb Williams. And then they surprised us by being in the game against the Commanders, who, by the way, are not good. They surprised us by dominating the Giants and then subsequently blowing that giant lead to the Giants. There's nothing on this resume that shows, the Cardinals are good. Nothing. So they're 7 for me, 7 for us. I just think, obviously give Josh Dobbs a lot of credit. He's hung in there. He's given them chances to win. But at the end of the day, they're devoid of legitimate talent. And so they can stay in games in the first and second quarter. But when you look at the stats, they are one of the worst second half teams in the NFL. And it's not pretty.
Where's Kyler Murray when you need him? At this point, I'm not sure how much better it's going to get when Kyler does get there. I know he's going to throw some touchdowns, Jake. He's going to extend some plays and whatnot, but how much better is this team going to get? And what I'll say, Jake, is the defense. They made Jamar Chase look like how Jamar Chase is supposed to, right? And it's unfortunate that Jamar Chase had to have a comeback game against a team like the Cardinals. But, in the red zone, they were atrocious, Jake. They were atrocious in the red zone. I think the Cardinals, it's hard to win football games like that. Josh Dobbs is doing his best. He finally got his jersey in the team store, right? He's doing his best to move this organization along. James Conner as well. I know he's battling some injuries, but this team does not have enough. And our thoughts are, what does it take next year, Jake? What does it look like for this team to get back on track? And to be honest, it's always top down. We always talk about this. It's top down. It starts at the top. And so they're going to have to get a new regime in there. Similar to how the Rams did. The Rams said they're rebuilding. Well, the Cardinals are going to have to really just clean shop, Jake, and I think figure out how to rebuild the team, because every year, Jake, it's the same news over and over again with the Cardinals. And so we have to change things up a little bit and figure out how to win some football. Get some stops on defense, number one, right? Get some stops on defense. They didn't do that last week against the Bengals, the other night against the Bengals, and it's showing. It's showing in their record.
Yes, it is. The Chicago Bears, number 6. Okay. I know that right now they're trending upward, but we can't do any of that moral victory crap, especially when that moral victory is to the Broncos. Okay. But the way I see it is they absolutely should have won and they blew it. So that's the way it is. Their record is what they are. They're 1-4, and they beat down a team that we now realize isn't good in the Commanders. They got absolutely blown to smithereens by the Chiefs, 41-10. They lost by 10 to the Buccaneers, and they lost by 18 to the Packers. I don't think the Packers are that great. So right now, what's the one thing you could take away? Justin Fields has got it going on so far. The last 2 weeks, you got him back on the right track. We'll see if it's actually for real. But the Bears have a shot coming up. They go up against the Vikings. They go up against the Raiders. They got the Chargers, who will probably shoot themselves in the foot a few times and keep them in it. So, you got some teams there. The Panthers, the team that hasn't won a game yet, in that next 5-game stretch. I mean, the Bears can turn this thing around, but I'm not going to overreact to a 20-point win against a team that's not a good football team. So,
no.
No,
Jake, you're right. I saw the Bears up and close and personal when they played the Buccaneers. And towards the end of that, the end of that game ended horribly, right? Shaq Barrett with the interception because of that back-to-back screenplay. I'm not going to beat a dead horse because we've talked about that play multiple times. But the Bears team, they do have fight, Jake. That's one thing. They do have fight. They do have a lot going on from top down. So we're going to talk about how they're going to get better next year. Which coaching staff. Get a solid coaching staff. Background check the coaching staff. Make sure they're good to go before they step on the field. Figure that out, number one. And then number two, put Justin Fields and DJ Moore in positions to win, right? There were some plays that DJ Moore had that, of course, like it was a nice little hitch pass that he got, but he broke some tackles and went and scored a touchdown, right? But put these guys in positions to score well, to figure it out. And I go back to the Rams, Jake, because the Rams last year, their offense was atrocious, similar to what the Bears are looking like right now. But this year, they've changed things around a little bit. They drafted some folks, right? They changed up the offensive coordinator. So now they got some nice cross around. So you're getting Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell open. I would like to see that same type of transformation for the Bears as well. For some reason with this draft, Jake, I did think we were going to see it, but I do think that the coaching staff there has to be some shifting around with the coaching staff to get this team on the right track.
No, I agree with you. I like this, what Rex _ Grossman said. I assume that's not actually the Rex Grossman that we know, but considering the way the NFL treats preseason, doesn't allow players to put on pads and actually play first couple of games, and NFL season is actually preseason. I like part of that. They do get to put on pads, but I do think each year, and this is the problem. It's a very dangerous sport. You're trying to manage all that. I think each year what we're seeing is it's harder to develop offensive linemen. It's harder to get these guys into shape. And I think that's why we see kind of this, it's almost like this hangover where you see these first 4 weeks and it's like, who's good, who's bad? They're kind of all bad, right? Like all these teams are playing bad. But I do think it has to speak to that because like the practices and stuff, I think they were even different when you were playing as well. I think it's changed like significantly recently because of player safety. But there's a balance because I understand that. And I understand, obviously, I've never been out there in, August when, the sun's beaming down on you and you have to wear pads. At the same time, it's like you got to get these guys ready and have them in football shape. And I think, what we're seeing is there are some guys that simply aren't in football shape and there are teams that are not ready. And it's why we've seen some ugly football and there hasn't been one good primetime game.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest, Jake, too, that's also on the athletes and on the players, right? We're responsible to getting in shape in the offseason. That's on the athletes. And at the end of the day, you're right, Jake. It has to do with how teams are getting prepared. Either you teach it or you allow it. And that's on the coaches to make sure that these guys are ready. Think about the Chiefs. I heard this, I believe it was, their training camp is gruesome. It's super hard. Travis Kelce and I think Patrick Mahomes were talking about it, I think, on the QB Netflix show, but they were saying Andy Reid's training camps are brutal. And you have to go through that, Jake. You have to go through that so you can perform come game week, come game day. Your practices have to be harder than your games. And if your practices are hard, it seems like some of these teams that we're talking about right now, they don't practice hard because they're not in game shape. So it is all correlative. And yeah, man, you got to get ready for the show. At this point, we've waited this long for the season to come along, and it's no excuse, Jake, to not be in shape. So either you teach it or you allow it, and that's on the organization.
I like that, Cam. As I start losing my voice already. New York Giants. Okay. They're number 5. We didn't put them super high in this list. And here's why, because Saquon Barkley is the engine and they don't have Andrew Thomas, who's one of the best tackles in football. They do have Evan Neal, who every Giants fan now wants gone because he's basically yelling at the fans. Rule number one, if you're playing bad on the field and fans boo you, ignore it. Do not go after the fans because they're already booing you. So now if you give them another reason to boo you, and it's off the field, it's not going to end well.
Yeah, it's not going to end well. That's just bad business. That is just bad business, full stop, right? It's like, and the thing too, when you come to sports, Jake, is there's a couple things. There's, of course, the players, the athletes, the product. You got the owners, you got the business, but then you also have the fans. So there's like 3 tiers there, and there has to be mutual respect from all the way through. If there's no mutual respect, then you don't have the sport of football, and that's extremely important, right? Fans are the fuel that makes this stuff go. Of course, the athletes are playing on the field, but there has to be mutual respect, right? You can't go and talk crazy to your boss because your boss is not going to play you. Well, the fans are essentially the boss, and the players, it all works together, and, there has to be mutual respect all the way around.
Yeah, I'm just confused as of right now. You don't have Saquon. You don't have Andrew Thomas. You should be trying anything to make that thing work. And Brian Daboll looked like one of the best young coaches in the league. And now I'm like, I don't even know. I mean, Jalen Hyatt is barely getting any snaps. Didn't get one target, this week. I don't know how you're not using Jalen Hyatt. 31-16, like, They had somewhat of a shot against a Dolphins team on the road that just set the record for most yards in the first 5 weeks of the season. They didn't look awful against the 49ers, and then that got out of hand despite the fact, I mean, let's be honest, Daniel Jones is their leading rusher right now. They don't have a run game to speak of. The Seattle Seahawks game was just atrocious, 24-3. And then, of course, their only win is to come back, rally in the second half against the worst second half team in the league, the Cardinals. The Cowboys was bad, 40-0, but that was the slopping wet weather and everything. They got some shots. I mean, the Commanders, the Jets, the Raiders, the Cowboys, at Jerry World. I don't love that. The Commanders again, the Patriots, even the Packers. I mean, as they get healthier, I think this Giants team can get, but the problem is it's like, have they lost enough games now where, like, are they going to even be able to climb out of this hole? Because when you look at it, some of the teams like the Packers, they win tonight. The Los Angeles Rams, the New Orleans Saints, the Atlanta Falcons. I trust those teams more to fill out those playoff spots than I do the Giants right now. You dig yourself in too much of a hole and you can't get out of it. I know it's early in the season. They're still in it. But this Bills game coming up, by the way, another primetime game that's going to be an absolute joke. Real quick, who booked these? Is this the worst year? Is this the worst year of primetime games? It feels like it is. It's
a business move, Jake. It's a business move. They look at the numbers. They see how many Giants fans are watching the game. They're like, hey, Giants fans are super engaged. And I think our guy Rex Grossman actually threw this here in the chat, but he said, and the problem with NFL teams is these larger media markets, and New York City is a large media market. And so you're going to see the Giants on some of the primetime games and some of the best things because they also have some of the most money, too, when it comes to this NFL teams, I believe. So you got to play them, Jake. If people are going to watch them, going to pay for it, you got to play them. But like you said, they are not playing well right now. And one thing, though, about the Giants, I see there's a Giants fan that hopped in the chat here, Jason Pinnock, Jake, with that 102-yard interception return for a touchdown on the Dolphins. That was actually super impressive, I would say. And it's the furthest touchdown for return in Giants history. So that was a plus. And for the Giants to do well, they need more of that. Against the Bills, they're going to need that same type of play. We always talk about this, the turnover margin. For teams that aren't doing well, you need to rely on your defense and your special teams. Full stop. Because the thing is, the offense is going to punt the ball, right? They're not always going to score. So they're going to be punting the ball. The defense is going to be out there a lot. So as a defensive player, you got to turn the ball over, similar to how Pinnock did. And they're going to need to do that against the Bills as well.
They're going to need to do that a ton against the Bills. I think the Bills only lost that game because the Jaguars got to stay in London for 10 days. And the Bills were jet lagged. And I think we saw that. That's pretty much what happened. Not trying to give the Bills any excuses. I'm not a Bills fan by any, credit, but I don't like the Bills coming off a loss. I don't like the Giants in that game at all.
No.
Another team I don't really like at all right now is the Commanders. I think we're getting way too caught up in that Philly game. Way too caught up into it. First off, okay, you go on the road against Philly. That's great. Philly. Like that's a division rivalry game. Yeah, to me, throw it out the window. Point differential does not matter in a division rivalry game. You have to be in those games. And they didn't get the job done. Like, I don't care that they went to OT. They still lost by 34 to the Bills. They beat the Broncos by 2, and they beat the Cardinals by 4. This team is not a good football team. They got a lot of talent. Unfortunately, our guy Emmanuel Forbes is just having a rough year. Not quite the guy we expected coming in. But in addition to that, like, Sam Howell's up and down. I don't think Ron Rivera is a good football coach. I haven't thought that for a while. I think he had Cam Newton at super MVP level, Cam Newton, and a good defense, Sean McDermott, who's now the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. And I think he got pushed by them. I think they put him in position. But if you look, I mean, Ron Rivera is not a good football coach. He's about average to mid. Like, you know what I mean? He's not great. And so what we've seen is, despite the fact you got Dayron Payne, despite the fact you got Jonathan Allen, despite the fact you got Chase Young, you got Montez Sweat, despite the fact you have that pass rush, you have a decent offensive line. Sam Howell was looking like he could be something. You got Brian Robinson. I don't even know what they're doing with Antonio Gibson. He's way better than how he's used. Despite the fact you have all those weapons, Terry McLaurin and so forth.
Scary Terry.
You're 2-3, and you look like one of the worst 2-3 teams that I've seen. Period. I don't think Ron Rivera is a good football coach, and I think that's why they're in this position. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think they're going to beat the Falcons in Atlanta. By the way, random fact that I heard yesterday that I couldn't believe: Desmond Ridder in his career is undefeated when playing in Atlanta. They are 5-0 under Desmond Ridder as the quarterback. So they're not winning that game. They're not winning that game.
Hey, Atlanta's finest. It's crazy because our guy Rex Grossman, appreciate you for jumping in here, but he said Ritter's looking like a box of chocolates. Jake, I felt that way. I felt that way at the beginning of the season. I kept saying Taylor Heinicke's going to take over that job, and Desmond Ridder is just, he's like, hey, I'm here to stay, my guy. I'm here to stay. So more power to Desmond. But we're talking about the Washington football team here. It's funny, Jake, because after the game, I was on Twitter scrolling through to get some content, before our shows and stuff. And I saw Magic Johnson tweet, he's like, dude, there's no way you can win if you have no energy and you're down by 20-something points by the halftime.
And that's coaching.
And there you go. That's coaching. And one thing I will say is, with that leadership in Magic Johnson, I know Magic Johnson played professional basketball. That's his lane, but he does know sports, Jake. And what I will say is he's a leader, and I think he's going to find other leaders to win football games. So, not saying that Riverboat Run is going to leave the team. I'm not calling for anybody's head. I'm not saying fire them. I'm not saying that because they have a family. But what I will say is, I'm sure Magic Johnson right now is like, man, Kroenke, who you have that goes and hires people? Because whoever Stan Kroenke goes and hires, Jake, or whatever agency he uses for his head coaching hiring, the Washington football team, Magic Johnson, needs to do the same thing, because they need new leadership, Jake, and all these teams that we're talking about, they need new leadership. Full stop.
Well, they did finally get a new owner, thank God, because Dan Snyder was a joke. I mean, all you need to know is that they had Sean McVay. Who else did they have? Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Evero, Aubrey Pleasant, Raheem Morris. They've had all sorts of these guys just in-house, and they let all of them go to keep Jay Gruden. I mean, I'll just say this right now, because people don't want to criticize Ron Rivera because he's been through a lot. He's a good guy, and he could be a good guy off the field, but he's Jeff Fisher, and I don't even know if he's as good as Jeff Fisher. They both lost in the Super Bowl, and I think Jeff Fisher's a better coach. So, and Jeff Fisher didn't throw his players under the bus the way he did last year with Carson Wentz. All right, we move. Number 3, the New England Patriots. Sorry, Patriots fans. Although I think you guys probably would agree after yesterday. Yeah. I felt bad. One of my best friends, his name is Kyle, huge Patriots fan. I saw him on Saturday, and he was like, yeah, I think the Patriots are going to win. I'm like, man, he was saying Derek Carr. I was like, Derek Carr could barely move his arm last week. Okay. Mm-hmm. Derek Carr is going to be okay this week. It takes a little bit to come back from a sprained AC joint, like we talked about. Mm-hmm. It was not good. 34-0 in Foxborough. The Saints typically aren't really good away from their home. I mean, normally that's a team that you want to play them in a dome and everything, but they came out and that defense is just nasty. It really is. I mean, from, Cam Jordan to Carl Granderson to Marshawn Lattimore to Demario Davis. I mean, they got guys everywhere. And then now Kamara's back. I mean, the Saints are pushing, man. They want to get into the playoffs. They know this is going to be a dogfight in this division. Buccaneers keep just, stealing wins. They know they're going to have to keep up the pace here. And so an absolute statement was made after losing, the previous week. They come out and they just absolutely kick the Patriots' teeth in. And, McCorkle Jones or whatever the hell his real name is, Mac Jones. Yikes. This guy is only really known at this point for kicking players in the nuts. And that's that. I mean, it's gotten to the point where that's really what we're talking about. I have Patriots fans that I know saying it's time for Bailey Zappi. This is a first round pick, Cam. They're like Patriots fans are done with him now. Yeah. And it's sad. I don't want to root for anyone's downfall, and that's not what I'm doing with Mac Jones. But dude, stop being the Grace Snell in the NFL for the love of God. One, and two, if you're going to be the Grace Snell in the NFL and you want to have the most punchable face in football, you have to at least win football games, and he's not doing that.
And what I will say, Jake, is I'm looking at Bill Belichick. At the end of the day, we talked about Ron Rivera, but Bill Belichick, Jake, I saw his presser. I'm sitting with my wife, and she's looking at Bill in his face, and I know he's like normally monotone like that, but she's like, it might be time for Bill to retire. And Jake, she watches sports, but she doesn't watch it like us. And what I'm seeing from Bill Belichick, if you're Kraft, if you're a part of that Patriots organization, that's not a good look. Even after a loss, he didn't really look healthy, Jake. And I'm worried about his overall well-being because Bill's not used to losing like this. And I do think he's starting to realize, okay, with the whole Tom Brady piece, I'm not sure. I know they kind of figure stuff out, but what we're realizing is Tom Brady was him. We're seeing this with some of these head coaches that are now at the Raiders or at different places that have come from the Patriots. They're hanging their hat in their laurels because they worked with Tom Brady and now they're head coaches other places. And we're seeing that they're not that great, that Tom Brady was the great one in that locker room, in that Patriots organization. And these other people are benefiting from it. And we're seeing these people not show up because they're not him. And Tom Brady was.
Yeah, I don't want to disrespect Bill that much because, I mean, you know what's really funny? It goes hand in hand. It's what I've been saying. I think that Bill Belichick is in perfect position to end up getting Caleb Williams if they keep him. And I think they should keep Bill Belichick, and I think they should get Caleb Williams. And that would be like Wembanyama. I've said this so many times to you. It would be like Popovich, who's like the Belichick in basketball, picking up Wembanyama. That's how I look at it. Popovich just had one of the worst seasons of his career, and people are like, he's going to hang it up. I thought he already announced his retirement. Like, I assumed he was retiring, and then it's like, no, he's coming back. And then they got Wembanyama, and I'm like, okay, I see the vision here. And I wonder if they aren't a little bit tanking at this point. It does feel like that. I mean, Mac Jones, the way he played in the Eagles game, looked like they had a fighting chance. Then they lose to the Dolphins, a close game on Sunday Night Football. And then after that, they beat the Jets. And then it's like the Cowboys game just deflated them. Like it just ended them. And now they are in our list at number 3. But the number 2 team here that's really disappointing. You and I had them winning. I think you and I both had them winning the division in the NFC South. And now it's going to be hard to do that. The Carolina Panthers, 0-5. They come in at 2. And the reason why they come in at 2 is because I think they are better than that 0-5 record. I think they're better than the team that came in at 1. They got blown out by the Lions. Look, that game was never going to be close. The Lions at Ford Field are a different animal, but they did play the Vikings tough. They did play Seattle tough, with Andy Dalton. They played the Saints tough. They lost to the Falcons. So what do I take away from them? Well, they're actually putting points up on the board, and they're second in the division in scoring, which, believe it or not, like that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But they're giving up 144 points, man. Yeah, they're 5 games. So I'll say this. I don't think it's an Evero thing. I actually think he's got a lot out of the defense. He gave him a chance to win the Saints game, the Seahawks game, the Vikings game, even the Falcons game. What I think is that this rookie quarterback in Bryce Young is not playing the ball we expected him to play. He's not making rookie mistakes week 5 that he should be making. He's making rookie mistakes that he knows better than to make. Throwing that far side hash throw when you have one guy bearing down on your, easily able to undercut the route. He never made those throws at Alabama.
Hey, Mac Jones is doing the same thing. What are they teaching at Alabama? Because Mac Jones threw that cross body pass. And he started like patting chest, like, my bad. I think
it's like, of course it's your bad. Who else would it be? It's like Bill Belichick's like they're about to break his wrist off or whatever after he does that. It's like, but no, in all honesty here, they're going up against the Dolphins next week. Like, this is probably going to be an 0-6 team. Then they got the Texans. Then they got the Colts. Like, I mean, those could be 3 straight losses. I like the way the Colts are playing. I like the way the Texans are playing. And I love the way the Dolphins are playing. So look, like, what happened with this season? They're not as good as we expected. I think we got really hyped about the coaching staff, all-star coaching staff, but I think we forgot about the fact they are kind of lacking some talent. And what we really see is the wide receiver room. It's why we're constantly hearing about them trading for a number 1 receiver. Cam, their wide receiver room is Adam Thielen. If he doesn't get open, hope to God DJ Chark is wide open down the field. And if he's not, then maybe Jonathan Mingo. But it's not great right now. And Bryce Young making really bad mistakes. It's just, and on top of that, let's be honest here. We've talked about this already ad nauseum. Frank Reich should not be calling the plays. Pass the sticks to Thomas Brown. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know how, like, Miles Sanders, there are times where he's in a groove and they're not giving him the football. It's just been bad, man. The only good thing about this season for the Panthers has been Adam Thielen. I can't believe how well Adam Thielen has been playing, a guy that a lot of people wrote off. But also I want to give a shout out, if that's even what I would say, or just prayers out to Chandler Zavala, who left the game. I'm not really sure what happened, but I actually had a chance to interview Chandler throughout the draft process. He's one of the nicest guys. He had a neck injury, was able to fly back to Charlotte with the Panthers, but that was scary. He had to leave the game. And, obviously we're all about the players here. I got a former NFL player on with me right now, but Chandler's a good dude, and just having those conversations with him and just learning his story and everything, just a humble guy. And it was great for him to get an opportunity to play this year and actually start an NFL game. But you worry about the actual person there in that sense, because neck injuries, man, it's scary.
I mean, it's a game of football. It's 100% injury rate, and that specific injury is probably the scariest one. Anything neck up, that's super scary, because at the end of the day, Jake, we want to play with our kids. Former athletes want to play with our kids once we retire, and to do that, you got to stay healthy. We got to protect ourselves, and other players have to protect each other as well. But Jake, I want to call this out and praying for all the injured folks in the NFL, because the Panthers defense, they are completely wiped out, Jake. I'm just going to go down this list here. You got Xavier Woods, free safety, Claudine, linebacker, Dante Jackson, cornerback, Frankie Louvu, linebacker. Then you got Deshaun Williams, defensive tackle. That's a lot of guys on the team to be hurt. And you think about, we talked about they're 0-5 right now. They talk about the point differential. A lot of times they can score really well, but they don't prevent the scores. And that's because guys are hurt. Guys on the bench are not available. And that's tough. It's hard to win football games, Jake, when your defense isn't ready, your special teams isn't ready. It's just full stop there. And so they're going to have to figure out how to get healthy, right? Trade deadline's coming up end of October. Do they get some guys on the defense to help them out, I think, just to get them through the season? Because it's only week 5, Jake. It's only week 5. So these guys do have some time to get right. But trade deadline's coming up. You need some people to get in here, because you're going to be 0-17 if you don't. Yeah. I mean, that's how it's looking right now for the Panthers.
Yeah, and I think that that perfectly segues into a team that is scoring the second most in their they're actually 7 points away from tying the Chiefs for the highest scoring team in their division, but they're 1-4. The worst team in the NFL, the Denver Broncos, in our opinion. The reason why the Broncos, well, they've scored 121 points. They've given up 181. They're going to be forever known as the team that gave up 70 points. They lost to the Commanders by 2. That we already established the Commanders aren't a good football team. They lost to the Raiders by 1. They're in our honorable mentions. They lost to the Dolphins by 50. I mean, I say that as a joke. I'm like, they're going to win by 50. They actually lost by 50. They beat the Bears by 3. And I mean, come on now. The Bears are 6th on our list. And then they lose to the Jets by 10 at home. And I'm just sitting here. They gave up 8 yards per carry to Breece Hall. Like, he had 177 yards on the ground. He hasn't had that all year.
The best game of his life.
And I'm looking at Denver and I'm like, the defensive stuff. First off, this is why you have to run a tight ship as an organization. And you also have to be aware of how you treat your coaches. Okay, so Ejiro Evero left. He didn't even give him a chance. He didn't want to interview for them. He left. The reason being is, based on what I heard, he did not like the way Hackett was treated on his way out. Hackett was a friend. He decided to sign on with his friend. Didn't like the way he was treated. It's the same thing. If it was you and I, and someone came in and said, all right, we're going to let go of Cam, but then they trashed you on the way out, I'd be like, I'm not working here. I'm out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's the same way. If you're friends with somebody, if you value them, then, that's how that's going to go. And so Evero leaves. Cam, they're almost the same defense as last year, and they are atrocious. It's because for whatever reason, Vance Joseph continues to get jobs, and I don't know why. The guy's one of the worst defensive coordinators in all football and has been for the last decade. Okay, he's terrible. He's absolutely terrible. He's got Pat Surtain here. He's got, Drew Sanders, who they drafted. They got all sorts of guys all over the place. And this guy just constantly, I don't understand what it is with him. His system just sucks, and he doesn't adapt to anything. I mean, like Justin Simmons. I mean, you got all these guys, Josie Jewell, Nick Benito, I think, has really come on, as a second rounder. I think it was last year. But it's just like you go out, you get DJ Jones from the Niners in free agency. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And unfortunately, I think Russell Wilson has been playing decent football this year. And it's kind of it's swept under the rug because it's like, well, they were bad last year. But I was like, no. That is not what the narrative was, right? The narrative was that they went out and got Sean Payton. And Sean Payton was going to make everything better. And I got to say, we got to stop with the Sean Payton nonsense. Okay. Sean Payton is an overrated head coach. He always has been. Okay. He had multiple seasons with a Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees, where they went 7-9, 8-8, and no one said a word because, it's Sean Payton. I don't know why we give this guy so much grace when he was also part of that Bountygate scandal. First off, he was suspended for an entire year, and the dude is an absolute jerk. Look at the way he called out Nate Hackett, know? Yeah. And Nate Hackett, what did he do? Didn't say a word. They just went out and they beat him by 10 on their own turf. So, look, I'm going to tell you right now, I think it's time for us to finally admit, I understand it's week 5. Denver fans deserve better than this. This team was starting to look like they could be a problem when they had Evero as their defensive coordinator, and Nathaniel Hackett just wasn't a good head coach, right? He wasn't. Let's just call it like it is.
First year, yeah.
But also, they didn't want to stick with him to see what he could be. They gave him 1 year, and to me, to give a guy 1 year in the NFL, it's not fair. And look, Sean Payton, look what he's doing with this same team, almost the same team. I mean, obviously, there's some new pieces, but the only thing you could say is Russell Wilson's playing better. But what do you have to show for it? Your defense has completely fallen off a cliff, and you've been the team that just gets revenge beaten. You got revenge beaten by former head coach Vic Fangio, defensive coordinator with the Dolphins. He got to watch your defense give up 70 while his defense only gave up 20, and then you got revenge beaten by Nate Hackett. So I'm sorry, I'm sitting here like, man, I think this Broncos team can score, but they're going to give up 500 points this year. I mean, it's not good. It's really not good in Denver.
Yeah, I know. As we wrap up here, Jake, for the Broncos specifically, when it comes to Sean Payton, he's getting what's coming to him at the end of the day. Full stop, Jake. CJ Uzomah broke the team down for the – I know it went viral. The NFL posted it, the Jets posted it, but he said, F that guy. He talked crazy about Hackett. Let's win it for Hackett. It was really cool to see the Jets organization give him the game ball, make him a captain, because at the end of the day, we talked about it before here on Bleacher Report, but at the end of the day, you can't cross the line as a coach or as a person, as a human, right? We talked about that respect between the fans, coaches, players. Like, there has to be a mutual respect. And when a player crosses that line, the Jets fans reacted. When the coaches crosses that line, the entire NFL reacted. And so I think the Broncos are going to get smacked, Jake. And as long as Sean Payton is there, I think as long as the front office is there at the Broncos, which I don't think has been doing too well, I think the Broncos are going to get smacked every year, especially if Sean Payton's at the front, because the way he talked about Hackett, he can talk about anybody like that. So now every coach is like, you know what? All 31 coaches, we got someone each year that we're going to circle on our list. Anytime we play that one coach, we're going to make sure we run the score up. And hey, more power to him, Jake. I really, to be honest, Sean Payton, he has to do better, right? And what I will say, Jake, is this year, I hope similar to – so I'm going to the Colorado State piece, that game, how iconic it was, number one, and then number two, when Travis Hunter got hit in his ribs. After that game, he sat down with that young man. They bowled for a cause, and it was really cool. I'm going to have a little note to Sean Payton. Sean Payton, get with your PR folks and figure it out with Nathaniel Hackett, because right now you're the laughingstock of the NFL, and you have to make things right next year. You got to make it right. Sit down with Nathaniel, have a conversation, apologize, do what you got to do, because it's not looking good, like you mentioned, for the Broncos organization.
No, I'm sure a lot of coaches are enjoying beating him, because he was one of the analysts last year who was poking fun at different coaches and saying, well, if I was a coach, I'd be doing this. And then they're like, you're a coach now and you ain't doing, you know what? So, I mean, that's really what it is. And so, I think moving forward, there's a chance this team goes 1-12 the rest of the year. I'm not even kidding you. Listen to this. You got the Chiefs, you got the Packers, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Vikings, the Browns, the Texans. I mean, then you have the Chargers and the Lions. I mean, they could go 1-13. Well, I'll give you a win against the Patriots, maybe. So, 2-13, and then you got the Chargers again. I don't like that. 2-14, and then the Raiders. I'll give you that. So 3-14, which would be worse than where I predicted before the season started. I had them at 4-13. So I never bought into the Sean Payton's going to change everything around nonsense. I looked at the team and I was like, you hired Vance Joseph, and Sean Payton hired Vance Joseph. This team is not well coached. This team's got way too much talent to be this bad, and they're the worst team in the NFL because of it. And I think it's time to just realize that there's a chance, if we can sit here and truly blame Bill Belichick and say Tom Brady did everything. And that's the narrative we're going with. Not saying, Cam, you're going with that or whatever, but that's what I keep hearing. It's all about Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Then we could sit here and say Drew Brees and Greg Williams and people like that had a lot to do with Sean Payton's success. And now Sean Payton's on his own, so to speak. And the one crowning achievement is that, okay, Russell Wilson doesn't look terrible, but I'm sorry, this is not a good football team. And it's so easy to sit there in the studio, your comfortable studio, feel great about yourself and say this and that and pick apart these coaches, and then, take a year off and feel like everything's going to be fine. And then, you come back to coaching and you get a wake up call, you get a real kick in the rear. And I think that's what's happened. And I think teams are going to be chomping at the bit to run up the score on him. And I think the Dolphins can say they weren't running up the score, but I mean, you got Mike White in there. Okay. But he's throwing bombs down the field. Don't tell me that teams aren't trying to run up the score on them. There are teams that can't. They're like, I mean, the Commanders aren't like a team that's going to score a ton. They still scored, 35, but the Chiefs, I mean, the only thing that might stop them is because it's a primetime game. And the NFL might be like, all right, take it easy on LeBron. But then again, maybe the only way to watch, the only good way and the value and the thing that would make me tune in is if the Chiefs won by 80. I think that'd be kind of fun to watch.
Jake, what we used to say while we played, Jake, is We used to watch film and we used to find the weak link, whether it be on the offense, whatever that looked like. We always say we have a duck on line one, and Sean Payton and the Broncos are a duck on line one each week, and they're struggling. So like I said, I do hope he figures it out next year. It's not how you start, it's how you finish, Jake. He did not start well. This second chapter of his NFL coaching career, he started horribly, character-wise and also performance-wise. So I do have faith that he will finish stronger, Jake. I hope he does, because it's not, like I said, it's not looking great, and don't want to put the man on the stake, right? Because he has a family. We don't want to bash him too much, but Sean Payton has a lot of growing up to do. He's a lot of growing up to do.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to him, I mean, at the very least, Russell Wilson's throwing touchdowns. Vance Joseph, I mean, it's like the defense is just walking off the field every single time that an offensive play is run. I mean, it's just, and these guys have a lot of talent. So it's me giving credit to the team that has been built here. I think they have a lot of talent there. I didn't mention Singleton either, but it's just not good right now. And so that's what I'll say. Alex, my friend Alex in the chat says, Broncos fire sale incoming, ? I saw there was a potential fire sale incoming. What they need to do right now is trade Frank Clark, because he does not need to be on that team. He's barely playing on the team. He was supposed to be this leader on the team. You don't need a leader. You just, you at this point, get rid of everybody and just strip it down to the studs, where you have the young core guys that you feel like can build this team. What I need to stop hearing, by the way, to be fair, is Jerry Jeudy to the Panthers. Why does that make sense? The Panthers aren't going to win anything this year. They're clearly not. They're 0-5. Why would the Broncos, who have a better record than the Panthers, trade Jerry Jeudy to the Panthers? He's a great player. Maybe pay him. You know what I mean? I don't understand that. So that's the one thing I'll say. That's my final thoughts. But in case you guys missed it, honorable mention the Raiders. Vikings were 8. Cardinals were 7. Bears were 6. Giants were 5. Commanders were 4, Patriots were 3, Panthers were 2, and the Broncos finished it out as the number 1 worst team in the NFL per our rankings. Obviously, other people have different rankings and so forth. And to be fair, the Broncos can turn this thing around and make us look like fools. That's certainly possible.
Because I do think the Bears on that list, but I do think the Bears, out of anyone on this list, can turn things around just a bit, if anybody can, and the Vikings as well. Those are my 2 teams, Jake, that can turn things around. Because it's only week 5. It is only week 5 in the season. We don't want to overreact, but we're doing a little bit of that. And like you said, the Bears are the worst team in the league. So, hey, put a pin in it, whatever you want to call it. But, hey, they got to do better next week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But that's going to do it for us. Appreciate you guys hanging with us for, the last 40 so minutes. And we'll see you guys soon. You can follow me at JK Bogan. You can follow Cam at Cameron Lynch 50 on all socials. Follow us on Bleacher Report app for more, and I'll see you guys soon. Later, folks.
Peace.